gonna hurt. It's time for the Suffering Podcast.
The walls rise without stone, built from silence and consequence, their shadows swallowing the light. The air hangs heavy with yesterday, pressing inward like a tide that never retreats. Beyond unseen barriers, the world moves freely while everyone inside echoes in hollow stillness. Time does not pass here. It drips, cold and deliberate, from a ceiling no one can see. Light slips in like a rumor, thin and fragile, tracing pale lines across a floor worn by restless pacing. Even reflections feel trapped behind glass, too thick to break. Hope flickers like a stubborn ember against the draft of despair. Strength is measured in survived mornings, not in miles. And somewhere beyond the iron-colored sky, freedom waits, patient and unforgotten. I'm Kevin Donaldson, always here with Mike Felice, and welcome to the Suffering Podcast. If you're a fan of overcoming adversity and overcoming suffering, then we're for you, because that's what we do here, and that's the stories that we highlight. So do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, please comment, ring the bell so you can get notified of all of our new content, and now you can join. And of course, follow us on all social media so you can find out what we're up to, when we're up to it. We have a very special episode tonight, a guy I've been speaking to for probably a couple months. Tonight, we're going to be talking about the suffering of prison with Shawn Johnson. Shawn, thank you so much for coming in. I really do appreciate it, because, you know, I want to make sure that this newfound life that you're given, that you don't waste it. Thanks for coming in, buddy.
No, thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. I definitely appreciate the opportunity.
You have just some uniqueness to your story, and we're going to get into it. Stick with us here, because this is something that made news not that long ago.
Yes.
And listen, I'm grateful. I see you're a man of God, and I always love that and I always appreciate that. But bottom line is, I think somebody always deserves a second chance.
Absolutely.
Always.
I agree with that too.
So before we get into anything, let's throw a big shout out to our marquee sponsor. That's Toyota of Hackensack. We don't trust anybody as police, and we certainly don't trust anybody as podcasters, but we do trust the guys over at Toyota Hackensack. So if you're looking for a car, go to toyotahackensack.com. Let them find you a car, but also tell them the Suffering Podcast sent you. So Shawn, each week we take a question from our audience. This question comes from Gold Nuggets. So in a time in your life when hope was in short supply, how did you keep hanging in there?
Simple, God. Because I feel like when you have that relationship, God will give you strength to get through situations that you would not be able to get through on your own. So for me, it would just constantly being in devotion at times throughout the day, praying and just trusting whatever God had for me and just relying on the strength that he could pour into me. And from that, it just kept me going through the situation that I went through for the amount of time that I did.
You know, you did it right, and I'm going to tell you why you did it right. You didn't put your hope in an attorney, because attorneys are attorneys. You didn't put your hope in the system, because the system can fail you. You didn't put your hope in anything that is going to let you down, leave you, or anything. You put your hope into something that's everlasting and eternal. So I think that makes perfect sense. Did you ever hear the term, and it's misquoted in the Bible all the time, where God doesn't give you anything that you can't handle?
Yes, I've heard that before.
You've heard that before? Do you know it's not in the Bible, number one? And second, it's the biggest bunch of bullshit on the planet. God gives you shit you can't handle all the time. And why does God do that? Because he wants you to give it all up to him.
No, I agree with that. I believe that the burdens that we carry, he wants to trust him and just gain like perspective from him in a spiritual way that'll help us get through everything that we face.
I always say that I don't know how to fix this, but I got a guy who does.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So for me, I had some really, really dark times, right? And my hope was just waning. You know, I was losing my career. I was a young man. I was 39 years old. I was losing everything. I damn near lost my family. I damn near lost my life. And all these things started imploding. And you know, my whole life got razed down to the ground. I didn't go to prison, but it felt like a prison. You know, I think prison would have been more comfortable because I could have been contained. I was left to my own devices. And what kept me hanging on was knowing that all I have to do in order to make it to the next day was just put one foot in front of the other. That it was that simple. And it was really hard to do some days. I'm not going to tell you that I didn't have to force myself. And there were some times when I wanted to quit and give up, but I knew that if the minute I stay stagnant, the minute I stay still, I'm not going anywhere, and I'm probably going to die doing it this way. I was either going to drink myself to death, or I was going to kill myself, or all these different things. But putting that one foot in front of the other and just having the ability to keep moving forward, no matter what the consequences are. And it wasn't until later that I rediscovered my faith. So I can't even say it was God, but in some ways it was God guiding me, telling me, hey, just keep moving. Don't worry about this. We got this. Keep moving. So that's what kept me going in my darkest of times, that one foot in front of the other. And I got to be honest with you, because I did that, because I had the fortitude to keep moving forward, my life's better than it's ever been.
Yeah. I think that's what'll happen. I feel like long as you just trust God, just take it one step at a time. And even if you don't understand that that's what you're doing in that moment, you will just get to the other side of it. And that's the beautiful thing about it.
It's a beautiful thing on the other side. It really is. So Golden Nuggets, thank you for sending that question, and keep sending in your questions and we will try to get them on the air. Now, don't forget to go to thesufferingpodcast.com. Get yourself some Dented Ace coffee. 100% of the proceeds go to Dented Development Project, which helps repair dents caused by suffering in first responders, veterans, and their families. And it's a great cup of coffee too. I had mine on the way in here. So go to thesufferingpodcast.com, click on the Dented Ace coffee tab and order yours today.
The battles we fight are hard and taxing on the soul. Fighting a battle that seems impossible to win. The stressful calls that give us wounds that cannot be seen.
These moments leave scars. They leave dents. Sometimes we just need to sit and talk over coffee.
Finding a moment of peace in the comfort of decompression with those whom you share difficulties. Sharing moments with those who are the only ones who understand. Our peace comes in the quiet moments we can share with our brothers and sisters.
It's just a moment to sit, listen, and let it out. We may be dented, but we are not broken. The Suffering Podcast, Dented Ace Coffee, was created to bring the peace to the protectors. Dented Ace Coffee is a tribute to my brother Mike Falaise and all the others who couldn't find their peace. 100% of the proceeds will go directly to Dented Development Project so that we can begin to repair the dents caused by suffering in veterans, first responders, and their families. The Suffering Podcast's Dented Ace Coffee. Get yours today by visiting thesufferingpodcast.com.
So Shawn, you kind of hit me out of left field. I got to tell you, you kind of hit me out of left field. You send me this message.
Yeah.
And you sent it on Instagram, was it?
LinkedIn.
You sent me it on LinkedIn, and it was such a heartfelt message that you sent to me, and you gave me like a brief snapshot, and I'm like, huh. Well, this sounds interesting. And I think I called you right away.
Yeah, you did it. I think I came across your profile on LinkedIn, and then it said what you do. So I said, oh, let me reach out to him. And I just put together what happened to me, and then you responded, I think, within like 5 minutes or something.
Oh, you don't turn down a pot of gold like you have, Lan, and that you have on you. But, there's certain times when I get messages. I get a lot of messages, and most of them are absolutely insane. But every once in a while, you get these messages on social media, and I pay attention. I'm like, okay, something's pulling me here. Like my gut was telling me, okay. And I called you right away, and you have just an amazing story. Before we get into that, though, why don't you give our audience a little bit about yourself? Tell us how you grew up.
All right, well, I grew up in Asbury Park, New Jersey. I have one older brother. I have one younger brother. Both of my parents were married. They still married to this day. So that's a blessing right there. And we just grew up in Asbury. Back then, it was like living in poverty in so many different ways, trying to figure it out on a daily basis. Trying to figure out your next meal, trying to figure out what you want to do. And for me, I think like growing up, my outlet was playing sports. So as early as I could remember, I just played sports, particularly basketball. So like that.
You're a big guy, dude. You're a big guy. You're when you walked in here, I'm like, hey, this is a big dude.
I'm 6'5".
Yeah, that's a big dude.
Yeah, so that's what kept me going, even in the midst of what was going on around me. But times was tough just living in that environment. Like I said, it'd be nights that you don't get anything to eat. So that was just like a part of my experience growing up.
Well, people take that stuff for granted, food's on the table and all that stuff until you don't have it anymore.
Yes.
And for you, it might have been normal, but for most of the people in the world, they don't have that experience, so it's funny how the small things that people take for granted every single day, that they have clean clothes to wear, that they have food on the table, that they have medicine or access to medicine, all that stuff. And, I used to see this when I was working as a cop. I used to, you pull over a car that's all jacked up, right? And there's 7 kids in there. They're all different fathers. And they're dirty, and half of them aren't in car seats. And I remember looking at these kids going, oh my God, you guys don't even have a chance. Like, it broke my heart. It broke my heart down to the core. And those were the people that I was more inclined to give breaks to, because what's it going to do? Give them a ticket. Their car's all jacked up. They're trying to take their kids to Chuck E. Cheese and give them a little bit of fun to escape whatever awfulness that they have.
Exactly. And that's what my parents used to do at the time. Like, they used to try to find little things that can probably escape from the reality. But even as a young kid, you know what your reality is. Like, you don't have anything. So you go to school and you see all these other people that have things. And it's just like, I don't know. It's just sad. Like, when I reflect on it now that I'm a grown adult, that so many people experience that still into today.
When you saw the haves and you were the have-not, did it breed jealousy? Were you angry at them? Like, what was as a kid, because kids' reactions come out unfiltered.
Yes.
What was your reaction to those?
Motivation.
Really?
Motivation. I used to tell my parents, I used to tell my brothers, even my friends, like I said, I was big on basketball. I used to be like, man, one day I'm going to make it to the NBA. So that way everybody's good. And that was like my focus. That and striving to be an entrepreneur in some type of capacity. Because I felt like they had things I didn't have, so it just motivated me more to work harder with everything that I wanted to do.
That's a mindset. That's a different mindset, because there are certain people. I remember growing up. I grew up in a 700 square foot house. I grew up with very little, but I used to when I went to high school, I saw kids who were driving in brand new cars to school and stuff like this, and being the little asshole that I was, I used to break into their cars. I used to steal the radios, and I didn't even need the radios, nor did I want the radios. I just wanted to hurt them because they had something I didn't.
Like me, I used to just be creative in different ways. Like, they had a Payless store around for where I lived at, and they had these boots that looked exactly like Timberlands in different type of colors.
They were Mimberlands or something?
Yes. I don't even think they had a name on them, but I would go and get some of them, and I would wear my jeans a certain way, so it like cuffed the back of them. But if you looked at them, you would think they was Timberlands. So people would think that I had different color and different styles of Timberlands that they didn't have. So that kind of put me in a position where it's like, yo, how did you get that? Even though I had nothing. So I always try to just be creative and just think ahead of things.
And, so looking at it through, how old are you now?
39.
You're 39 years old. Look at it through a 39-year-old's eyes, and you're like, who cares what the name says on there? It's like, but back then, when you were a kid, that's everything.
Yes, that's everything to you.
So when I grew up, Cavariccis were the style, like these pants, and they were stupid looking pants. I'm talking, we're in the 80s. They were stupid looking pants. But Cavariccis at the time were like $70. I'm not getting Cavariccis. So I was big enough where I would make fun of the kids. Again, it's me being jealous. And I wasn't mature enough to understand that at the time. So you're around all this stuff. Did it start creeping into your lifestyle? All so the kids will get involved in nonsense.
No, yes. I think by the time I hit about like 10, 11 years old and you experience this enough, you want a way out to, fulfill that void that you have. So growing up in Asbury, it's a crime-ridden area. A lot of people back then at that time sold drugs. So you'll look at it like, okay, people say don't sell drugs because you don't want to go to jail, but then you see all the nice things that a person can have. So it's like the risk versus reward type of thing. So then that's when I started venturing into the streets, started selling drugs in order to, get the things that I wanted at that time.
So I just did my Instagram Live on this tonight, and my Instagram Live, the whole part of it, and without having you in mind on this, it was pleasure offers or promises freedom, but ultimately leads to slavery. All right. So that's the lifestyle you're exactly talking about. You're seeing these people on the street corner doing bad things, and you know they're bad, but it's promising freedom from this poverty.
Absolutely.
All right. And oftentimes it doesn't work out so well.
It doesn't.
No.
It doesn't. We make short choices and they have a lifetime of regrets because so many things that come with that of being involved in the streets that you don't be prepared for. So like you can go to sell drugs, but then, okay, if you're good at selling drugs, then you got to worry about people that stick up kids. And then it leads to so many other things that you're really not prepared for. And before you know it, you're like sucked up into that world like a vacuum that is crazy.
Are you ready to enhance your skills and provide the best care to those who need it the most? I'm Kevin Donaldson.
I'm Sherry Alsop. Our trauma-informed training is here to help, and we've been traveling across the country delivering this essential need to departments and organizations of every size, shape, and makeup.
We come to you with on-site training so you don't have to worry about travel or scheduling conflicts.
This isn't just a class, it's an interactive experience. You'll learn directly from subject matter experts who teach from a victim's point of view, putting you in the shoes of those who have experienced trauma.
This approach allows you to understand trauma on a deeper level and to better serve the individuals you work with.
We'll guide you through new interview techniques that prioritize a victim-centered approach, ensuring safety and empathy in every conversation.
And for those of you in law enforcement or other fields, our training includes post-credits, giving you the extra added value and recognition for your commitment to professional growth.
We offer references upon request to show just how effective our training can be.
Don't miss the opportunity to improve your understanding of trauma and make a real difference in the lives of those you serve. Get in touch with us today by going to sherryalsop.com and let us bring trauma-informed training to your organization.
Together, we can make a lasting impact.
What was the drugs that you sold?
Just cocaine.
Cocaine. So you're talking, what, the early 2000s?
Yes, early 2000s.
Cocaine? Was that George Young cocaine?
More like the crack, like the rock.
Oh, crack.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, crack. Crack. God, that was past the crack epidemic, though, right?
It was, but it was still relevant at that time when I was growing up.
Because crack was a big thing. Like, I think it was
in
the late 80s and 90s.
Late 80s, early 90s.
Who were your customers? Was it people from the neighborhood or people coming in?
People all over.
Yeah.
I tried to be as best as I could with everything I was doing. So it was like people all over. I had clientele from all over.
Now, your parents, who are still married, and they sound like good moral people, they tried to give you the best life that they could provide for you. Did they notice this stuff going in?
I would say they had an idea about it, but they was caught up in their own world, dealing with their own thing. So it was like they was present, but they wasn't present.
Oh.
You know what I'm saying? They had their own thing going on.
So did they ever say anything to you?
Of course. They said things. You need to get on the right path. You need to do what you need to do. But it's like one thing just saying it and just not caring after that instead of just, having that parental guidance on a consistent basis.
Well, you have a bigger bankroll than they do at this point.
Yeah, at times, yes.
Yeah. And how did you spend your money?
I spend a lot of my money on friends. Like, I'm the type of person, I like saving money. If I can avoid spending money, I would. But if it's things that they needed in the house, I would pay for it, right? Times Christmas come, I pay for everything. I get a Christmas tree and everything. But it was majority like my friends because I had friends that grew up in the same type of situation I was in. So I would try to make sure that they was good and just try to save as much as I could along the way.
So getting involved in that world, it teaches you certain things.
Yes.
And I've had friends who have done it, and it teaches you how to read a room. It teaches you how to take the temperature of whoever's in front of you, how to have situational awareness. You got to take a look around. I got to tell you, everything you're learning being a drug dealer would make you a fantastic cop. It really would, because you learn not to trust anybody because everybody's always got an angle.
Exactly. Like exactly everything that you said. Like you learn so many different traits and characteristics of just being in that world that it become implemented in you on a daily basis. And not for nothing, like those things helped me also when I ended up in prison.
Walk me through the process. You start out, when did you sell your first drug?
Probably around 13, 14 years old.
And did you think that, hey, listen, I'm doing this now, like this, or was it just like one thing so I can get some money for something?
No, to me, it was just about survival. Yeah. It wasn't like my whole goal was like, hey, man, I'm about to be the best drug dealer out here. It wasn't that. It was just like, what do I need to do to provide for myself and those around me on a daily basis.
So you weren't looking to be Scarface
No,
or anything like that?
Not at all.
And throughout your career as that dealer, tell me some of the horror stories, because everybody thinks it's, oh, you're on a corner, you do this, you get the money, you take it back, but there were some times people tried to take advantage of you, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, it's definitely times people try to take advantage of you. I remember one night that me and one of my guys was out there. It's probably like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and we're in the alleyway and we trying to sell as much as we could, and somebody walked up, put a gun to our head, try to rob us. Like, that comes with the territory of being out there.
And that didn't wake you up to say, hey, wait, maybe this isn't.
I don't know. I think like you think about that, but then you start to realize like this come with it. So to me, at that point, it's like, okay, if he caught me slipping like that, now I have to be a little bit smarter. I have to be in a way that you can't just walk up on me to do that.
So the average person's going to listen to this and go, hey, you're a drug dealer. This is all part of the game.
Mm-hmm.
You have to read the fine print of your contract. You know, your contract is written in something different but how many people get a job and don't read the employee handbook?
True.
You know, and all of a sudden a rule hits them and they get in trouble for something. Well, it's in the employee handbook. Shame on you for not reading it. So if you were selling drugs and you got a gun put to your head, which is unfortunate, and you're kind of, like you said, it kind of comes with the territory. You know the rules of the game.
You learn it as you go.
Yeah. And so how much were you moving?
I would. I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, I was this big guy moving all these kilos. I was just getting as many grams as I could just to sell it.
Were you beholden to somebody higher than you?
No, I work for myself.
You did?
I was always an independent person.
So walk me through the process of how it's done. Okay, so you buy it from this guy who's got X amount.
Yep.
And then you just move your own stuff.
That's it.
And then, so what kind of markup would you have?
Markup on a good day, I could easily make a good $1,000, $1,500.
Profit. Pure profit. And like, what do you, I have never, crack was a little bit after I was in high school and stuff like this. So I'm not familiar with it. If you talk heroin and stuff, you know, I didn't even deal with crack all that much out on the street. What's a bag of crack go for, or whatever, or vial?
Back then, I probably could get a gram for like $20.
$20.
And I could make an easy $100 off of it.
So you're selling it for 40?
No, I buy it for 20 and make $100 off of it.
So you're selling a gram for 120?
Yes.
Man, I'm doing something wrong. You just changed my you just changed my worldview on that. Now, when did stuff start going wrong?
I would say, you know, being out there a couple of years, catching a little juvenile charges. By the time I was 16 years old, you know, I had my first 2 kids. And then by 17, I had my 3rd kid. So now I went from, you know, just trying to survive out there into I got to feed 3 kids now. So that's what it came to it. So it just like the more I indulged in the streets at that point in time, the more I was just oblivious to everything else around me. I just wanted to just make money to provide for how I needed to and transition out as quickly as possible.
Did you have a job though?
No, I had one job. It was like a telemarketing job. I'll probably work there for an hour. That was it. I got hired. I went through the training. An hour later, I quit.
Was it your attempt to try to go legitimate?
Yes. Like it was, like I said, it wasn't a lifelong thought like, oh, this is all I'm going to do for the rest of my life. It was just a temporary fix for that moment to fulfill everything that I needed to have in that moment.
Was that an attempt to try to get away from drug? Because you know the path. Like you seem like a really, really smart guy. So I'm pretty sure you knew how this game ends.
Yes.
Or did you think you were going to beat the system?
No, you kind of know how it's going to end. Like some people, unfortunately, get murdered. Some people, unfortunately, end up in prison, right? So you already have the odds against you in that favor. And then some people actually end up doing the drugs that they selling. So you got so many things that stacked against you where like walking out is like the small part of it. So like I said, my whole thought was never like, I'm just going to just sell drugs for the rest of my life. I just wanted to do everything in that moment to provide for what I needed to and then transition out and just go live life by the time I hit by like 18, 19 years old.
So you think it would be fair to say that because of the lifestyle that drug selling provided you, that you ultimately became a slave to that selling of drugs?
Yes, in a moment, yes.
Yeah. And did you have any forethought of you got 3 kids at 17.
Yep.
Like, that's crazy, dude.
Yeah.
You got to get some cable. You should have taken the money and got some cable. But that's kind of crazy because now you're a kid raising babies.
Absolutely.
I mean, you're not mentally mature enough to do that stuff. I mean, at 39 years old, at 51 years old, I'm still not mature enough to take care of my kids, but I do it anyway. But like, your parents are still around. Are they like, is this guy's lost?
I think so, but like I said, they was caught up in their own world, dealing with their own problems. So I just think that they just didn't know how to be there as parents in that moment. And I think that's where the lack of parental guidance just allowed me to just run free and do whatever I wanted to do.
Was there ever a time where you're like, okay, you're doing it to survive. Okay, it's survival. Was there ever a time where you're like, okay, I'm going to ramp it up because I'm going to make some real money before this goes south?
Nah, because like I said, I wasn't like predicting to be a long-term drug dealer. I think by the time I got close to 18 after I had my kids, I got arrested on a juvenile charge, and I ended up in like a little juvenile boot camp that was in South Jersey. So when I started getting everything back together, like as far as my life, I actually came home and started getting in shape basketball wise because I played basketball in parts, and I actually was about to go to Monmouth University to play basketball.
Oh, you know what? They got a good basketball. I think they got a
Now,
good football program
yeah,
too. But
now they do. But back then
No.
they basketball team sucked.
So you actually had an exit plan,
Yes.
and unfortunately, when you see this with I hate to make this analogy, but it's true. So you see girls go and be dancers, right, at a club, and I've bounced at those clubs before, and what you look at is there's some girls who are businesswomen, they're lifers, right? They'll go in there and they'll do their shift, they'll get out, they'll take their money, and then you had the other girls who hung around, they look for a little extra. They're doing drugs on the bar, and it's more becomes a lifestyle, and they'll all say the same thing: I'm trying to save money for college. Well, whatever job you get out of college ain't going to pay like this.
Exactly.
Yeah, so you get caught up in a lifestyle.
Absolutely.
But that lifestyle is not sustainable. You knew it wasn't sustainable. But you had something really awful happen during the course of this. Why don't you walk us through that?
All right, so by the time I hit 19 years old, being in the streets running around, me and some guys back then got into a couple of little what we call beefs back then, and that led to somebody getting shot one day in the back, and it also led to somebody getting shot that ended up dying.
You were there. You were involved in this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you want to walk us through that incident?
The first incident, it was
it's happened more than once.
it was two different incidents, but it was all the same thing.
Okay. Same beef.
Yeah, same thing. So the first incident happened on, I would say, October 15th. And it was a couple of guys. We got into a little altercation. One guy started shooting. I started shooting back, and one of them got shot in the back.
Well, when did you start carrying a gun?
Probably like a couple of years prior to that. Being in the streets, you want to protect yourself.
You have you're carrying around cash. You're carrying around money. Okay, kind of makes sense. You have to protect yourself. Do you remember what the beef was about?
No, probably over something that I had nothing to do with. That's just being honest. Like me, I was a loyal guy, so it was like being loyal to my friends at the end of the day.
So I know growing up, the way we grew up is like when somebody confronts you like that in an aggressive behavior, you can't back down because then you're seen as a bitch, and you can't do that, right? Because then that stuff will be mentioned throughout the community.
Absolutely.
And then all of a sudden your ego gets in the way.
Yeah.
If you were to look at yourself through your eyes now and your experiences, and you look back, what advice would you give that 17, 18, 19-year-old kid when it came to that particular incident?
That particular, for everything, kill your pride. I feel like pride get us caught up in so many different things 99% of the time because we don't want people to look at us a certain way. So when we have pride, the thing that sometimes you probably don't want to do in that moment, you end up doing it because you feel like, okay, I need my perception to be this way at this moment. But I feel like when you kill pride and you stop caring about what other people think, other decisions are options that people make.
So this shooting that happened, was What was your thought process? Like, I gotta have some sort of vengeance against them?
Nah, it was never vengeance.
No.
It was never vengeance. It was never anything personal. It just happened to be two sets of people that was in the streets, and it just happened.
So when you pull that trigger and this unfortunate incident happens, internally, what's going on inside of you?
Internally, I'm just thinking like, wait, this really just happened, right? You got one person that got shot. Like I said, the other incident happened, somebody died. So to me, as being a 19-year-old kid, I'm looking at it for what it is. Yes, I justifiable try to protect me and a friend. And then in the other incidents, I try to protect myself, right? But you still look at it like it's unfortunate at the end of the day because somebody got hurt and it's somebody's family at the end of the day, no matter if you was in a right or not.
I always wondered that, when you have these gangland shootings and things like that over drugs or whatever it may be, what kind of humanity is left inside the person doing the shooting, whether that person gets just shot or that person dies, whatever pain they inflicted. The humanity, I think if you do it too much, like you have these guys go out there and they don't think anything about it. I'm wondering what they have left inside.
Yes.
Did you still had some sort of moral compass, some sort of humanity?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I tell anybody to this day, even back then, I'm like, that's still somebody's family. So I'm the person on the side that pulled the trigger in these situation, but I'm like, somebody lost a loved one. So to me, it's like, it sit different because they're going to mourn, they're going to weep the person that they lost. And of course, they're going to feel some type of way about me, which I got to live with that as well. But it's like, it's still somebody's family member at the end of the day. It's still not right, even if the law say it is right, defending yourself.
Now, after this happens, after this incident happens, you're sort of just standing there. What's your first reaction afterwards? You drop the gun, you throw the gun, you run. What do you do?
Oh, after the one where he unfortunately died, I ran. I left, and then I ended up being in Pittsburgh, PA, like 2 days later.
Pittsburgh's an interesting place. I've been there. It's an interesting place.
Yes.
All I know is I was driving into the hotel in Pittsburgh, and I'm like, God, I hope my hotel's more than a mile away, and it's only saying it's a mile away. But you ran away. Like, what kind of fear did you live underneath? They're looking for you.
Yeah.
Somebody probably ratted, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
That happened. Like, I would say I was in Pittsburgh for a week before the marshals had came and got me. I didn't have a warrant for me until about like the 21st of October. And that's when they started looking for me. So at that point, it was just like, I'm contemplating like, okay, how do I navigate this situation, right? I know what I did was right in the sense of the law. I defended myself. So I was just thinking about how I can potentially just move about it and go turn myself in. But then it's another side of me that growing up in the way that we did, people were like, yo, there's no such thing as self-defense.
What was your relationship with the police growing up?
I got in trouble here and there, but it wasn't nothing where it's like, if they see me, be like, oh, you a bad kid.
Yeah.
I think it was more of like, if they see me, like, come on, you could do better. You have greater potential.
Well, it sounded like you had a lot of potential with basketball alone. Now, you're on the run. This stuff just happened. What did your future look like to you?
I felt like, I'm sitting there before I even got arrested, like, okay, I'm going to do some time. Because by then they already had the warrant out. They already had the picture of me plastered across the news and all that. So I'm like, I'm going to do some time. Right? So I'm just thinking about like, okay, am I going to turn myself in at this moment, or if I'm just going to be out here until they get me? But like thinking about the future, I'm like, how much time am I potentially going to do? That's what I was thinking about. Then I sit here thinking about majority of my time of my kids. Like, they're not going to be able to spend that time with me. So it was like so many different elements and so many different factors I was thinking about.
The anxiety had to be
Yes.
overwhelming.
Yes.
You're being hunted.
Yes.
For lack of a better term. Now, marshals come in, they get you, they throw the cuffs on you.
That's a different experience.
Yeah.
That's a different experience. Like getting confronted by a regular officer is different. Getting confronted by the marshals, they coming with that whole thing like you armed and dangerous. So it's like one false move could actually lead to, your demise in a certain type of way. When they came into the house, they had the house surrounded that I was in. It was probably at least about like 30 or 40 of them. And when they came in, I actually tried to hide under a bed. And they grabbed me, and I probably had about like 8 guns to my head while they was cuffing me.
And at that point, you pretty much know the game's over.
Yes, it was over.
Yeah. So they take you. Where did they take you first?
They take me to the federal building over there in Allegheny County.
And then now you're sitting there, and these charges are getting levied. And like, what did you do for an attorney?
I only was charged with the murder charge at first. So they didn't bring an attorney because I was still in PA, but I was just like, okay, just send me back to Jersey. And then that's when they gave me an attorney after I waived my extradition rights to come back to Jersey.
So you got a public defender?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Should save some of that drug dealing money now. Public defenders aren't the best.
Nah, they definitely not.
Yeah. So you have the deck stacked against you. You said somebody kind of ratted on you.
Yes.
There's eyes everywhere, and somebody's always looking to lessen their charge.
That's what happened.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's exactly what happened.
Yeah. There's no loyalty amongst thieves. It's just not going to end well that way. So you're sitting in prison. Your life's in the balance. Is there any type of defense that you're going to mount?
Well, to me, it was the truth. I defended myself, and even though it's 2 incidents, it was like one incident altogether. I'm like, I defended myself and I defended another person. And the thing about it is, going through the proceedings, leading up into my trial, it was evidence coming out from other people that actually gave statements that was like, no, this happened, this happened, this happened. But nobody never just came out at that moment and say, yeah, it was completely self-defense. A lot of people was trying to fend for themselves for the own charges that they had at that time.
So you're pretty much screwed at this point.
Yes.
So do you take it to trial or do you plead?
I take it to trial. They offered me 18 years, 18 with 85. So that was a month before I go to trial, and I tell them, like, no, I'm going to go to trial. Because I would say about 3 or 4 people, they recanted their original statement. So I felt that with them recanting and actually coming to tell the truth in some type of manner, that I had a better shot of winning. But yeah, it didn't happen that way.
Yeah. So what was the you get found guilty?
Get found guilty, and a month later, I got found guilty June of 2008. By August 1st, I got sentenced to 60 years in prison.
60 years. That's one of those sentences that, like, man, you should have pled guilty.
Yes, yes.
Was there regret that you didn't plead guilty?
I would say later on during the bid, yes. But in the moment, I'm a 21-year-old kid at this time. I was in the county jail for 22 months. And at 21 years old, they're saying at 18 with 85, which is 15 years, I think 3 months. So they're basically telling me I had to do another 13 years. At 21, I'm sitting here like I can't see myself doing 13 years in prison. I did tell them, though, in the beginning, before we even got to the offer, if they would have offered me, say, about 10 with 85, I would have signed it.
Really?
Yeah, 8 years, 6 months.
And they probably would have taken it because lawyers don't like to lose. Prosecutors don't like to lose.
No, they turned it down.
Really?
They turned it down. The original prosecutor that I had on my case, he became a lawyer. So in that transition, he came and asked my lawyer to say, okay, if we could strike a deal, what would you take right now? My lawyer came and told me, and I said, hey, I take a 10 with 85 right now. We don't got to do anything else. I will sign it right now today. He went back and told him. The prosecutor came back and said, no, your case is too high profile. They're not going to allow me to do a 10 with 85.
Let me ask you this question. This is a hypothetical question. Let's say they accepted the 10 years with the 85.
Yes.
All right? You think you would have gone back out on the street and started selling again?
Yes. Or not at least selling, but my mindset probably wouldn't have transformed to how it did through the 19 years.
And that first night, so you get 60 years. All your hope's pretty much gone at this point. What did you see? You're just going to spend the rest of your life in prison.
From the time I lost trial, I honestly did not care about what they was going to sentence me to. Because I felt like if they would have sentenced me 60 years, if they would have sentenced me 50 years, 70 years, it's kind of like all the same thing once you end up in Trenton. My focus was to work as hard as I could to get back home. Anybody that know me from when I walked in that prison in 2008 until I got released, the one thing I kept telling people, I'm going to go home one day. I
So-
didn't know how, didn't know when, but I'm going home.
You would have you've been 80 years old if you did your full bid.
71.
71 years old. Well, you go to 85, right? So 71 years old, you're an old man, couple screws loose in your head, and you're basically doing. They're taking your life.
Absolutely.
They're taking the parts that matter anyway. Now, county jail is something.
Yes.
Trenton State is something else.
Completely different.
You go into Trenton State, you're walking in the first time. You're a kid.
21.
You're 21 years old. You're a kid. They saying stuff to you?
No, all right. So when you go into Trenton State, they take you into this garage. And I tell anybody this, when you get into the garage, it's like so dim in there. Like you can barely see anything. Like you can feel the depth that's in that place that it carries from over time. And then they get a sergeant, they get a lieutenant, and then they got to walk you to the clinic. So you're going through the north side of the prison before you go to the quarantine that they got to put you on for your first 7 days, whatever case may be. So as they're walking me through, I literally can feel the tension, and I'm looking at all the COs holding their little billy sticks and all that, and I'm like, okay, so this is the Trenton State that everybody talk about. And they ended up putting me in As Said the first day. Even though I'm in population, they did not have room for quarantine, so I ended up going to a cell that was in As Said. So I started off my Trenton bid being in As Said for 2 weeks.
That is totally separated from everybody.
Completely separated. And they treated me as if I was in As Said, that I wasn't in population.
So that's 23 hours a day lockdown.
You locked down. I was locked down 24 hours a day.
24 hours.
24
You weren't
hours.
even allowed out to exercise?
Nope. The As Said that they had was on one left at that point in time. No, let me say not As Said. It was just like the detention part of it. And you're locked in a cell. You come out for a shower every 3 days.
Ooh, God. No wonder prisons smell.
Yeah.
I've heard this before, and I want you to give me your thoughts on this. I've heard that a prisoner, especially doing a serious bid like you, is as reformed as they're ever going to be the minute that door closes, the minute they hear that clank.
First night?
The first night.
I can agree with that.
Yeah, so give me your thoughts on that, please.
My first night that I walked in there, so I get in there. So let me go to a population park. I was in As Said them first two weeks. But even that night, I walked in there at night one. I'm sitting there like I'm looking around the cell, and the cell is probably as wide as this table, and probably the length from there to here. That's the cell.
It's like 6 by 8 or 6 by 9 or something?
Probably 6 by 9.
6 by 9.
6 by 9.
So just to give you, you're 6'5", you cannot lay crossways across your cell.
No, I cannot lay down because like probably half of my body is like touched from other side. But night one, I actually sat there in the cell and I just like looked around and I'm just like, man, I'm really in prison and I'm in Trenton State, the place that you hear about so much living in Jersey. And I'm just sitting there thinking like, okay, I got to fight as hard as I can to be free. And that's all I kept thinking about. And even before my relationship with God transformed to how it is today, I prayed.
Yeah, there's no atheists in foxholes. Yeah, you put somebody in the midst of suffering, and yeah, they'll turn to God real quick, even if they're a stone cold atheist.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So your family is like your mother, your father. They know all this stuff's going on. You got 3 kids. You got a girl?
At that time, no.
You didn't have a girl, so the kids are with their mom.
With their moms.
Okay. Did you worry about their future at all?
Yeah, because like you look at it that they would have had to grow up without me. And it's more of a hardship already living in that environment. So now I'm out of the situation and their mothers, because my son and my youngest daughter have the same mother, my oldest daughter have a different mother. But it's like they have to basically raise them. My family basically have to raise them on their own without me physically being there. Like no matter how much you do in prison for your kids, it's still a complete different thing from you physically being there and being able to provide.
You know, there's a statistic, and the number, I'm going to give you an approximate on the number, so please, those fact checkers out there, please don't hold me to it. I believe it's fatherless homes produce a kid who's 75% chance higher of going to prison.
Yes, I read something like that before.
So it's somewhere
around there. It's a high percentage.
Does that ever enter in your head? You're like, oh my God, I just not only screwed myself, but I screwed my kids too.
Yeah, well, you think about that, and my kids, they was 2, 2, and 1 by the time I got incarcerated, right? So by the time I'm in prison, they're like 4, 4, and 3 now. But they can tell you to this day, as far as I can remember, every conversation with them was, "Don't be who I was. Stay out of prison and complete school. That's it."
Yeah, and you have real world experience when it comes to that stuff, so there's no better mentor but you even though you're removed from the situation, it sounds like you're still trying to stay present in their lives.
Oh, absolutely. We talked a lot throughout the time I was in there, and I was appreciative. My parents brought them to see me maybe like every 2 or 3 weeks throughout the year, so we was able to build that relationship. And it was more so like I never lied to them. So if they came to me knowing that living in the environment that they heard stories about me and they asked me, I would tell them, yeah, that's what happened. Just don't do that or don't be like that. But I never lied to them and said, oh, no, that wasn't me. No, I told them the truth about it.
So I've done that with my kids too, and I think it's the right path to I got a 13-year-old and a 16-year-old, and they're going to parties and people are doing stupid shit at parties, and my oldest son just asked me, he goes, Dad, did you ever do any of that stuff? I said, yes, of course I did.
Yeah.
I'm not going to sit there and tell you I'm holier than thou, but I'm also going to tell you the psychology behind it. And the psychology behind it is I was trying my best to fit in. I was trying to be like everybody else when I didn't realize that being an individual and standing out is really what's going to bring you ahead and get you noticed, not fitting in. Fitting in is, you're just going to be part of the crowd.
Absolutely.
So I like that. I like that you told them. Plus, they're sitting in prison. They're sitting in a prison coming to see their father. Was there a lot of tears, a lot of emotion?
Yeah, it was at times. So it's funny because like growing up, that my parents or friends used to try to tell me I was in school, right?
You're in college.
Yeah, that's like the whole school thing. But I've also felt like, kids go to school. So it's like they go to school, they come home, and they look like you're in school. But I remember the day that we actually had the conversation. I think they was around 11 or 12. And my son told both of my daughters, like, nah, he in prison. And they didn't believe him because every time they just like, he's in school. So we're at a visit, probably like an hour after they had this conversation. And my daughters tell me this, like, yo, tell him that you're in school. And I'm like, no, you're right. I'm in prison.
And now while you're in prison, how did you protect yourself? So prison is very tribal.
It is.
You have to get with this group in order to protect you from another group, however it may be. How did you protect yourself?
Trenton State is not like that currently, and or like that when I walked in. Like I know a lot of people think that every prison is the same, but being in Trenton is it's kind of not like that. It's a lot of diversity in there. You can be with whoever you want to be with as far as your affiliations to different people, but you also do have it to a point whereas you fit in with certain groups that can change certain things for you for protection purposes or whatever the case may be. Me, myself, I was always just me. And going to Trenton, you run into some people that you may have unfortunately met and then now y'all in Trenton, or you may come across some people that you've been in their neighborhood, they've been in your neighborhood, or some of their friends know you or you know them. And I think like majority of people that I met, they knew some people that knew me. So when the word came back, it's like, oh, he's him, then it's kind of like a mutual understanding from day one. I really stayed out of trouble the whole time I was in prison. I was just me.
No fights, none of that stuff?
The whole time I was in Trenton State, I fought 0 people.
Really? But you witnessed a lot.
Yes. Of course you're gonna witness that.
So in prison, what's the worst one you saw?
Worst one I seen one guy get jumped by 10 people. One guy get jumped by 10 people, and it happened in what do you call the mess hall. The thing about that is, though, if you get into any fight, any stabbing, or anything inside that mess hall, the COs is not coming inside there. Because at that point in time, you probably have about 250 inmates in there, and they know they're not outnumbered. They are outnumbered. So they don't want it to be a situation where it's like a pretend situation just to draw them in there. They want to protect themselves. So if you fight, they tell you you have to make it to the gate. And if you don't make it to the gate, you could potentially die in there.
And they just let you go.
They let you go. If a person want to stab you for the next 30 minutes. If nobody intervenes with that, you're going to get stabbed for the next 30 minutes. They're not coming in.
So you being a bystander and you're watching these 10 guys jump on this one guy, what's the protocol? What do you do?
All right, well, they all come to the gate, start yelling, but for the most part, everybody just stand back because you never know why it transpired. You never know anything like that. Sometimes it just happens. So majority of everybody that you're close with, you try to start counting like, okay, this is my guy, this is my guy, this is my guy. They're good. We just go and chill over here because it has nothing to do with us.
Kind of mind your own business, stay in your lane.
That's it.
You think that's the right way to do things? I know in prison, it's survival. It's self-protection. Do you think that there will be a different way to go about doing that?
I think my personal perspective of prison was we always wearing khakis. So from day one until the day I walked out, I tried my best not to argue with anybody that was wearing khakis because I looked at it as we're in the same exact position. Like you might have more time than me, I might have more time than you, but we're all in prison. So to me, I'm like, it should be more unity that we work together in regards to, getting the changes that we need inside of the prison for ourselves, but also to make it a better place for ourselves while we're here.
But you also got to understand, too, you're looking at 60 years,
Yes.
Okay? This is your life. Like, you have to make your life in prison, from what I've been told, is you get out of prison what you get out of it, right? And you try to build your own life, especially with somebody looking at serious time like you're looking at. You could have a very hard time for 60 years, or you could sail for 60 years. And it's kind of up to you. How do you want to live your life? Sounds like you chose the path of least resistance, where it's like, okay, I'm just going to do my stuff.
Yeah, well, that came from, you get people that been in prison for some time. Everybody down there has time. Everybody have more than 25 years at a minimum. You're not being in Trenton State unless you have anything less than 25, 30 years. So everybody has time, right? I think me being me and, I'm educated. So a lot of people gravitated to that to, I could teach them some things. But from the beginning, a lot of older guys that was down 25, 30 years, and I play basketball and they see I'm quiet, I'm to myself, they'd tell me, like, don't make the same mistakes that I make. It was one guy who was blessed to go home last year. He had a 4-year bid and turned it into 40 years. Like, that's the reality of it, because people get in there and they want to get into fights. They want to get into stabbings. So I had a lot of older guys that was in prison that came to me and say, listen, you want to make this as easy as possible. Don't be like me, right? Stay out the way. Do what you need to do. Learn your case, fight your case, but don't get into trouble, because all those institutional charges can come back to haunt you one day. And I'll get into exactly that when we get further down into the release, but they was absolutely 100% right about that.
So there was a shift in there.
Yes.
Okay. What was the shift inside prison, inside of you, where you were Shawn the drug dealer, Shawn the guy who pulled a trigger? You were this guy.
Mm-hmm.
Something changed.
I would say about 6 or 7 years in. 6 or 7 years in, I'm sitting on a bunk one day, and I'm just like looking around the cell, and I'm sitting in that small cell, and I'm like, I want better for myself. I want better for my kids. And I'm fighting my case. I'm still doing everything. I'm not getting in trouble, but I'm like, I just want better. And I remember that night vividly. I was praying probably for about like 30 minutes. Praying for about 30 minutes. And after I got done praying, it felt like a weight got lifted off of me. And I say that because from that point forward, even when I used to go to church, I used to be the guy that's sitting in the back, and I'll potentially be talking throughout the church service, not even paying attention to what the pastor is preaching. But from that moment on, I went from sitting in the far back of the church to sitting in like the second row. And then eventually I got to the front row. Eventually I got a part of the ministry team that was in there. But that night was what changed my perspective, like, of prison, and even spiritually, to just, continue just to work. And from then there was no looking back.
In chapel, inside prison, you have guys raising their hands?
No, you don't really have guys raising their hand. Like when we going, it depends. If you're like a Bible study, yes. But if you're in a service on Sunday, no. Nobody
I mean,
raising
to
their hand.
praise.
Oh, to praise. Oh, absolutely.
To praise.
I would say I've been home 3 months, and I've been to church, right? I've been to actually two churches. I've seen church on TV. It ain't nobody that praised like how we praised when we was in there.
So the reason I bring that up is because I remember my walk to faith is because there was a retired professional hockey player I had on the show very early on invites me to the church, and I'm like, yeah, I'll be supportive. I was not religious at all. I was more agnostic than anything else. And I go there and I feel something. But when I walked in there, I'm a non-denominational Christian church. And I watch people raising their hands. And I remember my son was with me. I brought my kids with me. They were my get out of jail free. And I looked at him. I'm like, you remember the first time you saw somebody raise their hand praising God?
Yes.
You're like, man, that is weird. That is strange. Did you have that same experience?
When I really started paying attention, it went from like the comfortability level of me being in church, and now I'm sitting in the front row and I'm seeing guys praising on their knees, right? And I'm looking at them, but I admire them for what they doing.
So that was the shift in me, right? So I stopped thinking about that was weird and start thinking about, oh my God, what are they feeling in order to do that? Like
Yes.
that's got to be an amazing feeling.
Yes.
I want to find out how
I
to.
want that. I want that. And I feel like the more that you walk in your journey with God, then you start not caring about what everybody else doing, and you're focusing on your relationship with God, and you find yourself praising in the same way that you do. And then, like in Trenton at church, like when there's the praise and worship going on, we in there running laps around the church, praising.
You kill your pride.
Kill the pride.
You killed your pride. And killing your pride does not only mean killing your pride on the streets, killing your pride inside the church.
Spiritually. And the one thing about being in prison, the beautiful thing about that is certain people that you have relationships with, they might not be there with you, but once they see you doing it, they're like, oh, I want to do that too. It's guys that I grew up that was from around my area that I knew, or guys I was just cool with. But once they seen me and other guys like fully getting involved spiritually, then you will see them go from sitting back at times, and then all of a sudden you will see them joining everybody running laps. You will see them praising the same exact way. So you kill your pride, like even spiritually, it goes a long way.
And it's amazing how getting involved in the church and getting involved in the ministry just brings these different worlds together. Like you and I probably on the surface have little or nothing in common other than we're Eagles fans.
Yes.
Other than we're Eagles fans.
Shout out to the Eagles.
But we're brothers in Christ.
Absolutely.
All right. And that's enough.
Yes.
So I go to a church with a guy who is the president of an outlaw motorcycle club.
Okay.
All right. You don't become the president unless you've done some stuff.
True.
You know? And this man is one of the most pastoral men I've ever met in my life. And he's one of my best friends in the world. And he knows I was a cop. Mm-hmm. All right. But what's our commonality? We're brothers in Christ.
Yeah.
So that's a wonderful thing. If nothing else.
No, it is. And I feel like once you acknowledge that, and then you start being around people that you probably would not normally be around, you'll start finding similar core patterns that you have commonalities, and you might even have the same perspectives of a lot of things. But because you come from two different worlds, in the beginning, it's like the outside looking in. It's like, yeah, I really don't know. But you never know. But I think like that's the beautiful thing about just growing in relationship with God.
So while you're finding your faith, while you're finding your relationship with God, you're still fighting your case.
Yes.
You're still going on. What happened where you saw some hope, some light at the end of the tunnel?
Every time I put in my appeal, I remember my first appeal, direct appeal, 2010. I was talking to the lawyer that I had, and he was like, this is one of the craziest opinions that I ever received. The judges that decided my direct appeal said that there was enough evidence to show my self-defense, but they still wasn't reversing my case. So at that moment, yeah, that's crazy. They said that. It's on the record. If anybody look, it's on the record right now. But from that moment, I just used every denial as motivation. It kept going, kept going, and kept going. When the hope came in even more was 2023. 2023 because we got an email on a JPay kiosk system that the ACLU of New Jersey was starting a Clemency project. And when we got that, it was, I remember, 6:45 in the morning. And I'm looking at the email on the kiosk. And they say, yeah, well, call them, give them your charges, give them your SBI number. And if you are selected as a candidate, you will be represented by them, or you could do a pro se. But just the mere fact that I seen it and it was based off extreme trial taxes, I said, I'm going home. Even though I always said I was going home, but I'm looking at that and I'm saying I'm going home.
The ACLU, it's a little different today.
Yes.
Okay, but the ACLU, I have to admire them for this reason. So here's a story I heard about the ACLU. There was a town in, I think it was Minnesota, that had a lot of Jewish people in it. And then the neo-Nazis wanted to do a march. And the town said, absolutely not. There's a lot of Jewish people here. The ACLU got involved and said, nope, they got a right to march. And actually fought for the neo-Nazis, which is crazy. I don't know whether they would do that today, but they did it back then because listen, if you're going to put up and say everybody has a chance to their First Amendment rights and all that stuff, you have to do it across the board. Exactly. Not just for what you believe in. You got to do it across the board.
You got to be impartial.
You got to be impartial. So the ACLU, they are to some extent impartial. Like I said, it's a little bit different now. I don't know whether they would fight that fight again, but I got to commend them for doing that. I don't agree with it. I don't have to agree with it, but they're Americans and they got First Amendment rights. So it's nice. So I'm assuming they took your case.
No, they didn't.
They turned you down.
They did. Listen, they started in 2023. This was when Governor Murphy was in office. 2024, on Juneteenth, he actually signed it into legislation that he was going to do the clemency thing, and we had to file our petitions. It was the ACLU selecting candidates, and it was Princeton Clemency Project. They was doing candidates too. Mr. Joseph Kokora, who used to be the ex-head of the Public Defender's Office, he had a team, and he was working with Princeton students to do it. I was in ASED at this time. And while I was in ASED, my wife is actually the one that got everything that I needed for my clemency petition in 2024. While I'm back there, I did 8.5 months of ASED. Why? I got caught with a cell phone.
Okay.
So she's getting everything that I needed for the petition. I came out of ASED. I went down in June of 2024. I came out February 2025. Once she sent me everything, and she also was just reaching out to different people to help with it. She reached out to this guy.
So you got married in prison?
Yes.
Okay.
She reached out to a guy named Thomas and Jackie that helped her put the petition together. She sent it to me. I filed it pro se April 15th, 2025, last year. I found out after I filed it that not only the ACLU can represent you, but Princeton can represent you. Around this time, that's when I got the letter from the ACLU saying they can't represent me. So I said, okay, I'll still do it pro se. I reached out to Princeton, Mr. Kokora, through my knit brother that was down there who was represented by him. And Mr. Kokora told me that he'll read through my petition. I gave him my petition. He read through it. He told me a week later that he was not going to represent me. So I said, okay, amen. I reached back out to him on the JPay, and I said, I appreciate you for just reading it. A day later, he reached out again and said, do you really still want me to represent you? And I said, yeah. I feel like having that added name on it would help. I had a strong petition. I had about 50, 60 certificates from what I did in there, and I had everything lined up, support letters. So he said he'd represent me. So he represented me, and they accepted my clemency. On November, I was part of the 6th round, November 25th. And I walked out of prison December 4th.
So when those doors opened for the last time, you look back, what would it take for you to ever ruin this chance?
Oh, listen, I'm not ruining this chance for nothing. This is a blessing, the second chance. I literally just had 60 years over my head 3 months ago. My release date was 2057. That was my release date. So that day that they was releasing me, I was walking around just looking at that hallway that I probably done walked hundreds of times, if not thousands of times. And I was like, this is the last time that this place will see me in that capacity of being an inmate. I'm not going back.
Well, if something does arise where you start having doubts, you are now in this studio, you are now part of my family, and you need to reach out to me. All right? And we'll sit and have a discussion. Like
Absolutely.
that's what, because having the right people around you, having a good support system around you, trying to keep you on the straight and narrow, or maybe giving you opportunities here or there or stuff like this, whatever it may be, just somebody who's on your side. You spent 19 years with nobody on your side but yourself,
Yeah.
So please, and I truly mean that from the bottom of my
Oh,
heart.
and I appreciate that.
Yeah. So we're coming to the end of this thing here. Do you want to give out your social media where we can find you?
Absolutely. You can find me on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. I have the same social media handle, which is Shawn John 1222. That's SHAWJOHN 1222. And every day I'm just highlighting these lengthy sentences that people have because I'm advocating for prison reform in every type of way. I just literally did 19 years and had a lengthy sentence. And I'm just doing that motivational speeches, trying to keep the youth and encourage them from making the same decisions that I've made and others made. And that's where you can find everything that I'm doing.
So if you have a prisoner come to you, as we're coming to the end, there's just one more point. You have a prisoner come to you and you sit down and you talk to him and he's not ready to reform. You know that he's just looking to get you to help him get out because he doesn't want to be in prison no more. Is that somebody that you would think about helping?
I feel my character, I will help anybody, but I'm also realistic. I actually had that conversation with somebody that's in prison.
I'm sure you have.
About maybe a month ago. And they're telling me, and they say, oh man, I need you to help me with this. I need you to do this. I said, listen, I've been able to be blessed to have a second chance opportunity. And along with my freedom, I've been blessed to meet different people, you yourself now and other people. And I'm not going to attach my name to anything. So if you're not prepared to come home, which I know you're not prepared, I will help you as much as I can to, try to navigate the legal system. But I'm also not going to advocate for you to come home right now in a second because I know you're not prepared. I have to be honest with people because I don't want to give them false hope just because I'm out here advocating for people. No, some people are not prepared to come home right now, and that's okay. Everybody have to work on themselves in their own time. You can't just want to come home just to be home.
Right. The whole part of prison is supposed to be reformed.
Yes.
Right. You're supposed to reform yourself in prison. You did, but many do not.
Yes, and that's true because I don't want to be ever in a position knowing that this person is not prepared to come home, and I'm advocating for this person to come home, and then you come home and do something crazy, and then people that support me like, yo, you just vouch for this guy.
Yeah.
Right? That's just not going to happen.
Muddy's your name too.
Absolutely.
So, like I said, we're coming to the end of this thing here, and I end every show the same way. I believe that suffering is the best teacher on the planet. Okay? I believe that it can teach us lessons we can't learn in books, we can't learn on TV, we can't learn from other people. We have to go through personal suffering. And if you haven't learned anything from being in prison for 19 years for this crime and given this second chance, I would say you're a fool. Okay?
True.
So I ask you, Shawn, what has your suffering taught you?
My suffering told me is like I told you in the beginning, killing my pride. And once I do that and I stop worrying about what anybody else might think or say, and I just worry about what I need to do and make the right decisions for myself, my family, my kids, my loved ones, my wife, that's all that matters at the end of the day. And I'm going to continue to make those decisions one day at a time so I won't ever put myself in that position or anyone around me. So that learning experience is an eye-opener. You don't get sentenced to 60 years and be able to walk out of prison, even after 19 years, but to be able to walk out of prison and talk about it. Majority of people that enter in that prison dies in that prison. I'm just blessed to have that opportunity to walk out, so I'm good.
Well, you are now reborn, my friend, and I
Yes.
can't wait to see what you're going to accomplish.
Yes.
I really can. So thank you so much for coming in here, Shawn. I do appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right. And listen, like I said, we got to keep in contact.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I appreciate you.
And that's going to do it for this episode of The Suffering Podcast, The Suffering of Prison with Shawn Johnson. And let's think about all the stuff that we learned. We are always right where we need to be. Know that, know the realities of our bad behavior. Kill your pride. Try to get better for yourself and yourself only. But most importantly, denial can often turn into motivation. And that's going to do it for this episode. Don't forget to go to popple.com, put in the code TSP20 for a 20% discount on your digital business card. Follow us on all social media. That's Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn, OnlyFans. Follow me at Real Kevin Donaldson, and of course, follow Suffering Podcast. We'll see you on the next episode.